I'm Jim Collison, and live from Omaha, Nebraska, and the Gallup offices in Sydney, Australia, as well as Perth. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on July 7th, 2014. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room available for you. It's right below the main video window. And if you're coming in on Google or on Google+, we'd love to have you join us at coaching.gallup.com. If you're listening to the recorded version, or you need custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, you can also contact us at our email address. That's coaching@gallup.com. And don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center. That's an easy site to remember. It's just Gallup Strengths Center, all one word, .com, for all your coaching resources and training needs. You can also catch the video and both streaming and now downloadable audio for offline listening to past shows. Again, all at coaching.gallup.com. Mark Thompson is our host today. Mark is the Director of Client Services for Asia and Europe with Gallup, and he is in our Sydney office today. Mark, it's great to see you, and welcome to your very first Call to Coach.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Really fortunate to be a part of the conversation today. Also to be a big part of the continuing movement of our strength science across the world, and it's especially live and well in Australia and the Asia Pacific. Today we're fortunate enough to have Belle Lockerby come and join us today and share with us some of her story from a strengths perspective, as well as what was it that helped her be called to coach, and how can she share some of the things that we might be able to apply to what we're doing as coaches right around the world. Belinda, I'll do a quick introduction of you, if that's okay.
Sure.
But the best person to share your story is going to be you. But just want to share with our listeners that Belinda likes to be called Belle, unless she's in trouble. Then it's Belinda. So for the rest of this call, I'm sure it'll be Belle. Belle's diverse career spans 20 years and has seen her operating in commercial, retail, non-profit and industrial sectors, including leadership roles in sales and marketing, retail buying, accounting and project management. And of course, not to forget her unpaid role as mother of two highly energetic children. The running theme throughout Belle's career to date has been change and continuous improvement. So she's currently completing postgrad studies in change management. She had previously set up a coaching practice outside of her corporate career to help women to manage critical transition between career and children. And during that time also set a 5-year career plan for herself. So we're delighted to have you join us here today, Belle. Love you to share your personal journey from a strengths perspective, and also share some of your learnings from being called a coach. So I might start off saying you're the best one to share your story. Can you take us through what was it that had you become called a coach? What was it that drew you into this as a field, as an occupation? And then also share with us your strengths journey to date. So take us right through that.
Okay, so I'll start with the coaching side first, and for me it really did come about after having my first child almost 6 years ago, that there had to be some kind of solution for managing my own transitions, and it sent me off to find my own coach and explore that whole coaching journey of actually being of service to others and helping them find their right fit and how do they play to their strengths. So I had gone through a life coaching area, which is still it's still growing, I guess, in Australia for the most part, but it never really felt like the right fit for me. I couldn't say I'm a life coach. It just felt a little bit kind of bizarre. I always liked playing in the business space a little bit more. So time kind of ticked along, and I went through a couple of project roles at work, and then ended up in sales and marketing in the retail side at my last corporate role. And one of our graduates who had come in to our area had the Strengths Finders book, and me wanting to connect with her because she's the only one sitting in our team with this particular book, I kind of asked her a few questions around what she was doing and what was that, and sent me off to buy every other person in our team a book and get my manager at the time to also undertake the test and bring our whole team together. And for me, that was the first realisation of kind of going, oh my God, you mean that my my futuristic thinking is a strength. Like, I had never really put a label on or been able to call it out before as a particular strength. And all of a sudden I just saw this big ripple effect through the team of people being able to name and claim what they were actually really good at and make sense of their own innate talents a little bit better. So that for me was the start of the strengths journey. And then I guess being curious about things, I started exploring the Gallup side a little bit more and saw that there was going to be this certification program coming up in Australia. So I set myself a goal to actually be on the first contingent, and I think from memory the first one was supposed to run in October last year, but something happened and it ended up being in February. So I still made the February contingent, which was great, and it's kind of, you know, just gone from, pardon the pun, but strength to strength from there, which has been phenomenal.
Yeah, fantastic. Have you got any of your stories? I know you were talking to me yesterday. You were talking specifically around futuristic and ideation.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you found, knowing that about yourself? How has that enabled you to connect with the people that you're trying to serve through your either your life coaching or through career?
Okay, so I guess I work a lot with startups at the moment, which is a great space for futuristic and ideation. But I've also got to make sure that I temper the ideation sometimes, because I can move too fast. So I guess it's really important to be mindful of what strengths you're bringing into the room and what the profile is of the other person. So sometimes the futuristic needs to be a much slower conversation with someone, or the ideation needs to be tempered a little bit more. So I guess it's really about tuning into whoever I'm speaking with and making sure that I can temper it. Because if you do put two ideators together, for example, which has happened to me a few times, it's just like watching fireworks go off, because you just go off on all sorts of tangents. It's great fun, but sometimes it doesn't actually get you to the result that you want.
Yeah, great. I know you were sharing yesterday when we spoke briefly about the impact it's had for you personally. Have you got an example where you can share of an individual where you've seen strengths becoming a real transformational awakening for somebody, where it's really helped them to achieve what it is they're setting out to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a young girl who I've been coaching. She actually lives in Melbourne, and we've gone through a couple of strength sessions, and she's looking at how does she build her capability within her sales. She's got like a small sales business that she runs. And all of a sudden, from talking to her about individualisation, which I remember, Mark, that's one of your strengths as well,
yep.
We started looking at how has she used that in the past in other roles, and how can she actually take that into her real passion area, and also having a look at how do her values relate into that as well. And all of a sudden, she's realised that she's got this huge ability and potential to just go ahead in leaps and bounds. And I keep getting status updates from her basically saying, I've just hit my personal best, I've just made area manager, I've just made district manager, and it just keeps going on. And now she's started, or just this week, she's actually sent someone that she works with in her team through to me to ask if I can actually help them on their journey as well. So for me, it becomes quite powerful when you see the ripple effect happening with strengths. That's something that I really love to see occur. It happens a lot with women who have older children who all of a sudden say, can you put my daughter through strengths? She's in high school and her confidence is a little bit lower. Can you help my son with something? So it's incredibly powerful.
What are some of the tips and tricks or things that you've learned in your various roles that you've had, in your role as coaching, and are there ways where you've applied strengths to help your performance as a coach exceed? And can you share that with us?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's probably two things. The first is mindfulness. So really being aware of what strengths you're bringing into the room and how you can best use them. And then also reflecting back on what else is in your toolkit, I guess. So whether it's other things that you've learned along the way. For me, it really comes down to considering the person's learning style in particular. So if you're dealing with someone who is highly visual or highly creative, are there some tools and resources that you can bring in to actually help them move forward. Another one is, I guess the most important for me, is actually being able to ask the right question. So I don't necessarily think a coach always has to have the answers to things. It's great if you can contribute to that, but having really good questions is much more powerful than having some good answers for somebody.
I saw at Jim and Belle, I think it was Larry Broughton talking on one of the other Called the Coach shows when he was chatting about the impact of teams and what it's done from a whole team starting to understand their strengths. Have you got any examples of that where you've seen from other your clients or yourself when the whole team is actually starting to understand their strengths and how to apply it in terms of what the team wants to achieve?
Yeah, there's a small startup that I work with. They are a very small and tight-knit team, and I have taken them through their strengths, and all of a sudden they start to realise who should be playing what role when they're going into client meetings in particular to pitch to each other, and they start to go, oh yeah, I absolutely see that in you. I see how well you perform when you roll into that room. So it's great for them to be able to acknowledge it in others and know who they can go to build on their strengths. And that's something that I think really resonates with me, is the fact that when you do deal with startups in particular, they feel that they have to be all things to all people, and it's not the case. It's really acknowledging what you're good at and who else is there within your team, whether it's a formal team structure or a virtual team structure that you can actually call on and help your business move forward. So, and then all of a sudden when they start coming back in and telling you that their goals have improved, it's fantastic.
Belle, let me ask you with that, because with Larry, I remember he had a he had a document that he held up, right, that had his team across the they had their strengths and their themes, and it was color coded. Any tools that you've used at all in the work that you do along those, and maybe not even necessarily have to do with teams, but what tools have you been using that you found very helpful?
I actually love the wheel, the strengths wheel. I don't have it to hold up with me at the moment, but I think that's a great one. And also bringing out probably like that, the color-coded chart is definitely helpful to sit down and let them have that conversation. I also quite using in a little bit of a varied format, the manager framework to get them to think about what's good about the other person in their team. So instead of using it in a formal manager subordinate type role, getting them to use that as a team exercise can be quite powerful as well. So what is it that you know about your coworker? What do you see? It's quite powerful. I'm sorry I don't have anything I can pull up on the call for you.
Talk a little bit about that wheel when you talk about it. I mean, what is it in particular for someone who's never seen that before? Maybe kind of tease that out. Explain what that does and how that works.
Yeah. So this is where I can kind of work a little bit creatively. That's something that I quite like to do. So you'll have to excuse my drawing. But if we grab a wheel, and my circles are terrible. But all of a sudden, if you can start to actually connect in with each other, how your strengths work. So, for example, I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, good enough.
So we basically have a wheel where we start to actually name our strengths through the wheel, and having a look at how they connect in with each other and how they partner is really important. So even from a team perspective, if people are to call out the one that they resonate with most of all, and you have a team wheel that actually has those strengths up there, it helps them to really look at what are the ones that we really identify with as a team.
Okay. Yeah, and so have you seen, can you give a specific example maybe where you worked with the team, and was there something that came up, an aha moment for the team where that worked out really well?
I think, so I know I'll reflect back to the startup space a little bit, but I think to see them kind of go, oh my goodness, this really connects to what the strength is of our company or our brand or what we stand for. It can really help them to then articulate what are the goals that they want to achieve, So they all of a sudden have this platform on, if we're going out on a united front around what we stand for, we have something to build on from this particular exercise.
Okay, Mark, I'll throw that back to you for some more questions.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I wanted to ask you one thing that really stood out for me as well, Belle, is one of the reasons, one of the pathways that you chose when you started to set up your coaching practice was around helping women manage the transition between careers and families. Now, for a lot of our listeners out there now in Australia, and share with any of your people in the West Coast there, Jim, as well, this is a hot topic of conversation in our country at the moment. As most people will know, there's a lot of freeze on the budget at the moment with regard to paid parental leave, the cost of childcare, all those sorts of things present a huge amount of challenges for women managing that transition. I think a lot of our listeners would know, if not their friends or families, but definitely associates and business partners and clients. Have you got anything that you can take from the application of strengths to really helping women be able to go through and navigate that transition?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that, so from my own personal experience, the best way I can explain it is you are very clear on your identity, and it's different for everybody, but you're very clear on your identity pre-children. So you have your career mapped out and you know what your strengths are, and then you take time out in most circumstances to work out who you are as a mother. And the best way I can explain it is when you then try and meld those two together, it's a little bit like grabbing a chocolate cake and a gourmet dinner and just mashing them together. And when you do that, it can be a little bit kind of daunting to go, well, what's my life look like now? How do I actually balance both of these commitments? So I think where strengths can really assist is to actually bring you back to your core and what you are really about, and then look at what's the outcome that you're really wanting to achieve. There's always a way to do it. So whether it's through having conversations with your HR departments or with your line managers around what actually works moving forward is really important to consider, and also having conversations in your family as well around what's working and, what are your goals moving forward. You're still your own person. You still care about family, you still want to have a career, it's just you really need to work through what does that look like for you in this new world. And I think for women, there's no right answer. It's going to be different for everybody. If you want to work part-time, that's fine. If you want to do the corporate thing and work 5 days a week, that's fine too. But I just think we need to be a little bit more supportive of each other and what the strengths are.
So it's interesting, I bring that up as well on our last accelerated program that we had a couple of months ago. One of the tables and a couple of participants on the table chose that as one of their goals, that they wanted to focus on that and help their clients focus on that as well.
Yeah.
How do you feel it could help businesses? And obviously the women in our workforce are a huge part of our country's productivity and a huge part of the culture of every organisation they work with. How do you think in Australia specifically, management as well as team members, specifically women team members, knowing their strengths and being able to apply that to an integrated work-life program? Do you see that as being beneficial, and what advice would you have for people that are dealing with senior managers if they're thinking, how do I help your women be more productive at home and at work?
That's a really big question, and it is a really hot topic. I guess it's one of my own passions. It was a little bit of an instigator for my whole journey. So I kind of believe there's always a way, and if you're still connected to the values of your company and they align with your own personal values, then that's probably the first starting point to make sure that you're still on the same page there. Then it's really looking at what's the outcome that the business requires, and what's the outcome that the female employee or the male employee, if you've got some, just if we talk about parental leave in general, is how then can you achieve that outcome? There's enough technology around these days to support working from home. So sometimes it's asking that question of, why? So why is this important, and how do we move forward? I think there's been progress, but we've probably still got a long way to go in terms of getting that right. And I don't think you can ever get a perfect work-life balance. It's going to be different for every single individual, and it will be different for every employer. But having the conversation is a great place to start. And actually, so just talking on the studies that I've been doing, I know there was a report from 2010 that I think when it gets to the senior level, males end up outnumbering their female counterparts by 1 to 10. And if you do take that strengths into consideration around sharp individuals and well-rounded teams, for me that comes back to diversity. So it's just to make sure that we keep that diversity conversation moving all the way through. There is always a way.
Belle, that's an interesting conversation, because even here in the United States, we're having a terrible time getting our young gals to go into technology career fields. I do a lot of technology recruiting for Gallup, and as I see, everybody is wondering, where are the gals going when the ladies are not showing up in the tech fields, especially here in the United States. And so I hadn't, I should start thinking, I mean, maybe there's a strengths component to that we're missing at the early, somewhere in the junior high, age here in the U.S. Those girls are choosing other careers other than technology, and we need them in technology. We need them to. There's lots of bright, brilliant women that we're missing out on that. And so I don't know. Any thoughts on that when we talk about a specific technology field?
I would say maybe stay tuned. So where I'm living at the moment, we're running our first Mumpreneurs program that kicks off at the end of July. It has a strengths foundation, which I'm really excited about. So we'll be using a few tools through there. And from all the women that I have coached or been involved in, they really love strengths. For them, it's really powerful in terms of identifying with it and saying, I couldn't name what it was that I was, that I excel at, and now I can talk about it and look at how I'm going to use it moving forward. So, if it is matching up talent and skills, there are heaps of talented women out there. So it's really about making sure it's aligned to what they're passionate about. And I think, I've read a stat somewhere that if males look at a role and they can only do 60% of the role, they will still go for it. Whereas women will look at a role, and if they can do 99% of it, they won't go for it because of that 1%. So it's just don't let fear get in your way, and have a go and embrace it as a learning culture instead of being worried about failing. The best thing that you can do is learn, and to have that learning mindset.
Yeah, great. I think one of the things I want to go through and ask you about as well, especially with your diverse experience across multiple industries. One of the challenges we sometimes have with our coaches is, you have some organisations that have declared themselves a strengths-based organisation, and there's a real acceptance for strengths throughout the organisation. But the vast majority of managers and the vast majority of the people that our coaches will be connecting with will often be a manager that's starting at the team level. And we often be a manager that's saying, how do I approach it? How do I apply for myself? How do I apply for my team? And I think one of the things that helps us get traction and helps our coaches get traction with their managers in their organisation is, how do we look at integrating strengths with existing processes or practices within an organisation? Have you had any experience, or have you got any opinions or insights around that? If you were speaking to managers that are out there, or coaches of managers, how they might be able to think about better setting up strengths in a way that will fit with existing practices or integrate with existing practices within organisations?
Yeah. I think for me, if I reflect on that, so first from the leadership side of things, if you are starting at that team level, there's always been talk about authentic leadership. And then if you consider the environment, so your existing processes and everything, there's a need to be adaptive is the other, especially with disruptive technologies going on. There's always something going on in the environment. So I don't think authenticity is enough by itself. I kind of have this term adaptive authenticity. So it's really about knowing what your strengths are first, and then how can you integrate them into your existing processes, and think about who it is that you're dealing with. So whether it's a team member that you're dealing with, or it's a customer or a supplier, you really need to work out how can you tailor it so that they're going to get the right outcome at the end of the day. But the authenticity part is really embracing your own strengths and knowing when they're going to help move you forward and when sometimes they might get in your way. So ideation and futuristic is a perfect one for me, where, you know, they can be incredibly powerful, but if I'm not being really aware of who I'm dealing with, I'll just get someone looking going, she's on another planet. So mainly my husband, but anyway, that's just kind of how it goes. So it can be applied to anything, and I think if people get stuck with that, that's where you need to look at who has other strengths within your team or within your organisation that you can actually call upon, like an ideator.
Now we have one of the things you were talking about yesterday is again that self-awareness of yourself, and futuristic and ideation was one that you talked about a bit. You also talked about belief. You wanted to include belief, which is your number 6. Can you talk to me about how that's applied to your coaching and awareness, and also interactions with some of your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I quite often get questions from people on strengths and whether they should consider it as a tool for their own coaching practice or for their business. And for me, it comes down to what stage are you at? Does it fit with your own values and your own beliefs? And is it something that you relate to that you can take forward? And if the answers to all of those are yes, then you're definitely in a really good position. If you kind of waver on it, then you've probably got some work to do before you leap straight into it, because otherwise the connection's not going to be as powerful. But I guess the reason why I like to include belief as my number 6 is I don't have too many executing themes sitting up in the top area. So belief for me is really powerful in actually enabling myself to get things done. So whether it's running a half marathon or whether it's completing, you know, postgrad study and juggling work and family commitments, it really comes back to that belief side of things. And what is it that you have that are, I guess, enabling beliefs, and do you have any limiting beliefs as well that you might actually need to let go of? And I guess, you know, Jim, back to your question about women and technology, sometimes it can be asking them, what do they believe about themselves?
Yeah, great. We have some of our listeners out there today are in a similar path to yourself. We've only just this year started to introduce and started to certify strengths coaches in Australia. Have you got any advice or thoughts for people that are starting off in their own business, just starting off into the coaching space? What suggestions have you got from them from your early days of experience in that regard?
Don't let fear hold you back. Is probably the biggest one, is just learn as you go and just recognize that it's a learning process. You are never going to get everything 100% perfect on the first go, but it is better to go forward than to stand still.
Have you worked with any partners? You've talked quite a bit about the futuristic and ideation side of things. I can see clearly how that's helping you with keeping that eyes on the horizon. Have you recognised the partnerships of others or the dominant themes of others where that has helped complement you in what it is that you're looking to achieve?
Oh, absolutely. So there's one of the ladies from the first course, Deb. She's got some great strengths. She's got Maximizer in her top 5, and that's something that I think is incredibly powerful. So her and I catch up quite regularly to talk about strengths and how can we move forward, or if we do end up with a team workshop that's too big, how can we both work together to actually move it forward and give people a little bit more diversity in terms of the strengths from the presenter that they're getting. So we haven't done any joint workshops together as yet, but we definitely have looked at, you know, how can we partner and support each other moving forward. And for me, that's probably one of the most powerful things, is to see like the Gallup Yammer activity, or the Strengths Yammer activity, and that forum I absolutely love, because to have people globally post questions on some of their projects that they're working on or seeking feedback from someone else, and to see so much engagement is just absolutely incredible. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
That's fantastic. Jim?
Yeah, well, Belle, I'll also add, for folks, the Yammer group is kind of for the coaches that have taken the training, but we do have a very active Facebook group as well that has about 2,500 coaches / strengths enthusiasts as well. So if you head out to facebook.com/groups/call-to-coach, that's a page you can be invited, or you request to come in, and I'll approve that, and there's a very active strengths discussion going on there as well. So great opportunity if you're listening to this and you haven't joined us there. Not everyone can get to the Yammer group, but we do open up the Facebook group to anybody that wants to do that as well. Mark, as we kind of are wrapping things up here, any final questions for Belle as we kind of roll this thing to a conclusion?
Yeah, I think if you're okay to go through and share really quickly with us, Belle, from a futuristic perspective, you talked about some of your 5-year goals. Do you mind sharing with all of us where you see your future and how you look at applying strengths and otherwise what you want to do?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked about that. I do love a bit of 5-year goal setting. The key with having strong futuristic talents for anyone else that has them is to make sure that you set yourself little milestones so that you don't get sidetracked by something else along the way. So for me, I would like to see strengths become so predominant in my business that my own 5-year goal, which I almost get embarrassed talking about it, is to actually see my business do really well in either the Telstra Business Women's Awards or the Telstra Business Awards within 5 years, and have strengths to be a strong component in that. So that's a big 5-year goal for me, and to start seeing my little business build a bit of a team up around it, which will be wonderful.
Well, thank you for sharing that and sharing that with us today. And you've got plenty of accountability buddies around the world to help you achieve that now, and
I have no doubt.
Remind you of that.
Very good. Well, Belle, we will thank you for coming on. And if folks wanted to contact you, from a social media standpoint, or what's the best way for folks to get in contact with you if they had some further questions?
So they can contact me through my website, which is www.rise365.com.au. I'm also on Facebook, so facebook.com/rise365.au. You can try me on Twitter, which I've got the Twitter handle of @CSFChick. I'm not the biggest Twitterer though, just so everybody knows, but I do have that Twitter handle. And they're probably the best ways to get in touch with me. So otherwise, look me up on LinkedIn.
Are you saying, so if Kurt Leesfeld is CSF guy and you're CSF chick, is that like Batman and Catwoman?
And Robin. Let's just say that was a futuristic action on my part, where I thought it might be good to keep that Twitter handle for future use, and I thought CSF guy was quite cool, so I thought I'd grab the chick side of things.
Very good. Well, we are all things social here in the Strengths Movement, and we're doing a lot of things social. If you're on Twitter, you want to join the Strengths conversation, we are using the hashtag CSFChat. So to build on top of that, Belle, we have a hashtag CSFChat in Twitter, and that's a great way of just tagging the conversation. Some people can follow that way and get that done as well. And I will remind folks as well that to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strengths Center, so that's just GallupStrengthsCenter.com. You can send us your comments or questions about this, coaching@gallup.com. And don't forget, you can catch the recorded audio and video of this show, and all the past ones are available at coaching.gallup.com. Mark, I think we have some future training. Some individuals might be thinking, hey, I want to get involved in this movement, and I think we've got some training coming up in Australia. Can you give me some dates for that?
Yeah, we have. We've got, I've just lost what the date was then. It was August. I don't want to confirm. I don't want to say if I've got the date wrong there now. I was thinking August 9, but I might have that wrong. But if anyone is wanting to go through and find out about that date, we've got, please contact us in the office, in the Sydney office. We have Stacey, who's managing all the communications around that as our champion for that in Australia. And if people want to contact us on 02 9000. The number again, 0294099000. This will be our third program that we've established in Australia, and so far we've had some great outcomes and results, and we're staying connected with a lot of our participants.
Very good, and we might have some folks from the United States doing listening or watching as well. We do have an Omaha course coming up very, very quickly here at the end of July, and so you would need to get that in. Just a couple spots left. Those U.S. Coaching courses usually fill up pretty fast, so a couple spots there, as well as in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta. The first one I've seen here in Atlanta, Georgia. If you want to get access to all those training, to our training site, you can go to Gallup-Strengthscenter.com. And look for, it'll just say coaches training down there in the scroll down a little bit, and it'll say training. So you can click on those links and it will get there as well. Well, we want to wrap this up. We want to say thank you for watching, thank you for listening. We appreciate you coming out tonight or this morning. We had actually somebody from Warsaw, Poland joining us. It was very early in the morning for them, and so whatever time zone that you're in, we appreciate you coming out and catching us in Call to Coach. We'll be back here with another one again, Gallup.eventbrite.com, and all our webcasts at Gallup. Thanks for listening.